Welcome to Make You Remarkable, brought to you by Oconee State Bank, the podcast that's all about unleashing your inner leader and making an impact on your community. Get ready for a wild ride of inspiration, education, and a whole lot of fun. Each week, we sit down with local legends, business owners, and influential minds to talk about their journey, their impact, and the secrets behind their incredible success. This is not your ordinary bank podcast. We're here to bring the energy, the laughs, and the aha moments that'll leave you itching to conquer the world. Now get ready to make your remarkable with your host, JT Tomlin.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Make You Remarkable, hosted by Oconee State Bank. I'm JT Tomlin, and today I'm joined by Federico Castellucci, the president and CEO of Castellucci Hospitality Group. They are a family-owned and operated collection of restaurants in the Southeast, with restaurants in the greater Atlanta area and in Nashville, Tennessee. His restaurants, Cooks and Soldiers, The Iberian Pig, Sugo, Double Zero, and Mujō, are considered staples in the industry. They strive to pursue the perfect dining experience, one guest at a time. Federico has been working in the restaurant industry his entire life, starting by running the kitchen in his family's first Atlanta restaurant as a teenager, to scaling his family's business to a multi-concept restaurant group. Federico is a Cornell alum and is a mentor, advisor, and investor in early-stage hospitality technology companies. He has been honored with many awards such as the Grace Awards Restaurateur of the Year, Atlanta Business Chronicles 40 Under 40. His restaurant Cooks and Soldiers was nominated twice for James Beard Awards, as well as a Michelin Star for his restaurant Mujō. Federico, how are you doing today?
Excellent.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell us a little bit more about your background and your journey.
Yeah, sure. So like you said in the intro, I've been working in the restaurant industry most of my life, and started actually in Rhode Island, where my family is from, as an apprentice baker at 11 years old, baking breads and pastries every weekend. My dad dropped me off at 6 a.m. to learn how to do that trade. And so ever since then, I kind of got the bug, and I loved working in restaurants, and I like the team mentality. And as you get older, it's the closest thing I think to team sports in industry. And so I love that aspect of it. And I grew up in it and grew up working in kitchens and restaurants primarily. And then, my family moved down to Atlanta in the late 90s, and my dad had restaurants in the Northeast, and things didn't work out so well with his restaurants in the Northeast, and he was looking for a change. And so he packed my brother and sister and I, a dog and a cat, in a Volvo station wagon, and drove down south. And that was 1997. And so I was 12 or 13 years old at the time, and we had our first family restaurant was actually called The Roasted Garlic in Alpharetta. And my dad and I were the only two line cooks in that business. So at 14 years old, my dad and I were cooking all the food every night of the week, even during the school year. So I was a busy kid growing up, and I always, missed all the events on the weekends and all the fun stuff that kids do. And so when I went to college, I really thought I was going to get out of the restaurant business and do something different. So I went to Cornell. I did the hospitality program there because I thought that I wanted to do something tangential to the industry. And a lot of my friends at the time were going on to do banking and consulting and real estate and hotels and things like that. And so I thought I wanted to go down that path. But very quickly, I realized that I had a deep passion for food and beverage and creating those food and beverage experiences for people, and that the people that were interested in that were really my people, and the people that were interested in investment banking and consulting, those weren't my people. And so I realized pretty quickly that this is what I wanted to do. And I also was exposed to a lot of different ways of going about this career path, and that there were ways to do it successfully where you didn't have to struggle and be broke. So I was interested in that primarily because that was a lot of our experience growing up. So we graduated in 2007, and at the time, our family business had transitioned. We had sold off the first restaurant and started a new one, and the new one was in a really tough location. and it was a struggle to get it off the ground, and it was very, very slow, miserably so. And we were bleeding, and it was a constant challenge. And then in 2000, I guess it was 5 or 6, we got named Best New Restaurants in Atlanta by Atlanta Magazine. And it was like instantly overnight, the business became successful, which was fantastic. And it was great to see that initial success. And then we made the mistake of expanding that business too quickly with other people involved, specifically kind of franchisees. And so I worked on building the franchisee system while I was in college. And by the time I graduated, all of our franchisees were closing or had closed. And then the original business was losing money because the franchisees had ruined the reputation of the business and the community we were operating in. And so when I graduated in 2007, I took over one of the franchisee locations and reopened it with the same name and the same location. So that was Sugo in Johns Creek, the one location that we still have to this day. And it was brutally slow. I was the only manager, kitchen and dining room. So I was open to close every single day. There's nothing more demoralizing as a business owner than opening your business, working 12 to 16 hour day, closing your business, waking up the next morning and having less money in your account than you did the day before, and also bouncing checks. So there's nothing that, at Cornell can prepare you for that experience. And so I leaned on just my parents and their lessons that they had kind of taught me growing up, grit and their ability to, regardless of a difficult situation, when the lights turn on at 5 o'clock and the restaurant's open, you put a smile on your face and you go out, you greet the customers, and you take care of the guests that are in your dining room, regardless of the challenges that you face throughout the day. And so I learned that from them, their perseverance and grit. And when I was in that situation myself, I just realized that the only way out of that, there are 2 ways to turn a business around that's struggling or losing money. You got to increase sales and you have to reduce costs. So it's a simple equation, but it's extremely challenging to do when things are not going well. And so the fastest and easiest thing we could do to turn the business around was to reduce cost immediately, and then also bring in some financing to try to buoy the business so that we weren't bouncing checks, and because that was an extreme cost when we were just getting started. The first year that I took over the company, we had 30 grand in overdraft fees, and so you guys are a bank, so you understand that. That's the fees the bank charges you to bounce your checks. So that was a manager's salary in those days. And so I realized that in order to get out of the mess we were in, that was the first thing I needed to change. And so, and from a cost perspective, there's also the cost of living. So as the entrepreneur, you are intertwined into that business. That business is supporting your lifestyle. So every dollar that we could save on the personal side was really $10 in the business, assuming a 10% profit margin. And so by reducing costs in the business, reducing costs on the personal side, not eating meals outside the restaurant, no Starbucks, you're drinking the coffee that we buy wholesale in the restaurant. And so, I did that. And then the sales piece was about focusing on the guest experience. And that's where our mission statement came in. Ultimately, as we started to see success, it was passionately pursuing the perfect dining experience, one guest at a time. And that ethos and the mission statement that we have to this day that all of our employees know is about taking care of the individual guest. And so that's one thing that every night when I was opening that restaurant, I would focus on making sure that I made every single guest happy that walked in the door that night. And so even there were nights where we would have 6 covers, meaning guests total for the evening, 4 of which were friends of mine that I called in because I was afraid we were going to roll a 0. And so on those nights, it's really hard, but it's pretty easy to make 6 people happy, right? Like you're just all over, you're making sure all the details are right. And so I did that, and it slowly built into 20, 50, 100, 300, 500, 1,000, thousands now. And so that kind of ethos of focusing on the micro, like the smallest possible unit of like action you can take in your business in a positive way every single day had a tremendous impact on our ability to grow the business over a long period of time. And then I think just the concept of the flywheel of like just pushing improvement and growth, even in the smallest possible ways every single day. We led from a business that was failing on the backside of a shopping center to now, 8 restaurants with 9 and 10 and 11 in the works, a Michelin Star, a couple James Beard nominations, and a restaurant in Nashville now. So it's just that constant improvement and that little incremental changes and growth that you can make. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Constantly learning from your mistakes. I made a tremendous amount of mistakes, but I try to learn from them and not make them twice. And so that's really the Cliff Notes version of the story, how it got started. And then, we can talk a little bit more about each individual concept and the origination of those. But on an aggregate basis, that's kind of the bedrock of the company. And then in 2009, my sister also went to Cornell. She graduated. That allowed me to break away from the one restaurant that I was running to now creating my first original concept, which was Iberian Pig in the Decatur Square in 2009. And then in 2014, my brother graduated from the CIA, the Culinary Institute of America, and then went and worked in Spain. And then we came back and we opened Cooks and Soldiers together. And so that's how I brought my family, brother and sister more into the business as they started graduating and getting their own experiences. They kind of took individual areas of the business and made them better. Stephanie initially as a general manager, and then now our director of HR, and John as a chef at Cooks and Soldiers. And then he worked really at all the restaurants and doing all of the openings. And now he's our culinary director, overseeing all of our European brands. And then eventually my wife, after she peeled off of JP Morgan after we had our first child, and she covers our whole marketing department and focuses on some of the biggest things that we're working on, which is new restaurant openings and how to generate more awareness and sales for the businesses. And so that's really how we brought it all together. And then my mom and dad are still involved in the original Sugo, the one in, not the original, but the one that I took over after school in Johns Creek. And my mom is still the general manager there now. And my dad goes around and talks to the tables and is a great ambassador for our brands and our company as a whole.
That is awesome. I, first of all, did not realize that Culinary Institute of America was CIA. That's hysterical. So he can say he went to the CIA or he worked for the... Yeah, that's right. Actually so great. But I mean, that's so cool. And like, that's something I want to talk about more, not the CIA, the family side of your business. Because, you learned a lot of these skills from your parents. And then now you went on to create this awesome company that has your siblings and your parents involved. So tell me a little bit more about like the family dynamics and like how running a business with your family works and the positives of that and maybe even the negatives. But what makes it a good fit?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you go through challenging experiences with other people, it creates a stronger bond. And so, growing up in the restaurant business, going through those challenging experiences with my parents and my siblings, seeing my dad lose it all multiple times, dust himself off, get back in the game, like that absolutely brought us closer together over the years. And so as we start to see this great success in the business, we can celebrate those wins together. Which is amazing. And also get to, my wife and our kids. Now we have 4 kids. And so for the business to afford us the ability to have this great family relationship and these great businesses is just the most incredible thing. And so we, while people may say it can be challenging to work with family, that's not our experience. I mean, we do challenge each other, but we have our own specific roles. And so, whether it's John in culinary, Stephanie in the HR, and Lauren in marketing, we all have our own silos and we support each other in those silos, even in the home front. Like my wife and I say, like, I'm the work CEO and she supports me as like my top lieutenant. And likewise, she's the home CEO and I support her as the top lieutenant. And we really tag team like both of our major roles together, which is our work role and our family role. And so, it's very unique to be able to do that, but it is tremendously rewarding.
Do your kids work in the restaurants yet, like you did?
They don't have any interest in it yet. And even my daughter, Olivia, I asked her when she thought, she would want to get her first job, because I do think it's very important to have jobs as early as possible. And she said that she wanted to get a job at 13. And that she said she didn't want to work in the restaurants. And she didn't want me to force her to work in the restaurants, but she wanted to be a hairstylist. So that's the current idea, which I'm happy to support. So as long as there's some job involved, I'm happy about it.
That's fantastic. Do y'all ever forget that your colleagues and go back to being siblings? Do you pester each other like at the work, or maybe not at the workplace, but just off and on?
I mean, not really. I mean, we just generally are grateful for the position that we're in and where we're at. So
that's amazing. It's really cool to see how you've created this like family like empire that you're able to, conquer the culinary scene together. That is so cool. Well, tell me a little bit more about how you grew from one small, like a small one unit family business to a multi-unit, multi-concept hospitality group. How did that happen?
Well, so I think growth happens, kind of in a methodical way. And in restaurants specifically, the value of the business is really intertwined with the success of each individual store. So each individual store is like its own startup organization, and it requires a lot of funding now to build a restaurant. And when that restaurant opens on day one, you have a pretty good idea if you have lost all your money or not. Like there is, you just basically know from the demand, the location, the average check, what you can expect moving forward. And if that number isn't a sustainable number moving forward, then you've basically lost your entire initial investment and you're unlikely to get it back. And you have signed yourself up for a multi-year headache of trying to make that business sustainable such that you can make it through your personal guarantee or the first term of the lease, or resolve your obligations to the bank. So it is a tremendously risky thing every time you open a restaurant. But that being said, when it does hit, it can be tremendous. And so, the first one that I opened was Iberian Pig in the Decatur Square in 2009. I did so with $100,000 budget, which was every cent that I could put together. The first $20,000 that I gave to the contractor, he did a little bit of demo work and left town with the money in 2009. So
wow.
I had a demoed restaurant and I had to figure out how to open it on an $80,000 budget now. Which what I did was I basically became the general contractor, found a general contractor in Decatur at the time to give me a signature on the permit so I could legally build the business. And I did so with a combination of subcontractors and barter, basically financing it through future sales of the restaurant that didn't exist yet. So back in 2009, there were a lot of creative financing that you could do that isn't possible now. But I basically, scraped together barely enough to get through the opening. And on opening night, I remember it was a Friday. We'd just gotten our permit. And I told my executive chef at the time, I said, hey man, we have to open tonight because all the inventory in the restaurant is unpaid for, including the alcohol, which is legal in the state of Georgia. So we've got like $40,000 worth of inventory sitting in the restaurant, and our bank account is overdrawn $10,000. So
wow,
tonight is the night we have to bring in some sales. And so we opened and we served. I didn't think anybody was paying attention to what we were doing. And that opening night, 200 people showed up. and we got
Wow.
absolutely slaughtered. It was just absolutely horrible. It was the worst restaurant shift I've worked in my whole life because the orders are flowing in and none of the cooks knew how to make any of the food because they'd never been taught it. They're still prepping
Mm.
items as we're opening the restaurant. It was just an unmitigated disaster. I called my sister and I said, "Hey, you got to get over here. We need your help." She ran the expo station, which is the air traffic control station in the restaurant, and I was just throwing bacon wrap dates in the fryer and trying to give customers free things as much as I possibly could. But I knew that we by the end of the night, we had brought in a little bit of cash and we used that cash to go to Atlanta Fixture the next day and buy the pots and pans and utensils and all the things that we had that we didn't have to cook the food because we literally had just opened the restaurant in a space that had previously been a restaurant. And so we were just using the things that were left behind.
Oh, wow.
That was our opening. But, every day since then, we made that restaurant better and better and better. And it was like a rocket ship out the gate. And the profitability of that restaurant was tremendous. And that led to the growth of all of the successive businesses after that. And so we opened Double Zero in 2011, which was a challenging opening. And one of those openings where I really was overconfident and took over a 11,000 square foot space in Sandy Springs and really tried to do too much with the concept. We were baking our own breads and pastries, making our own gelato. We had a cafe with a full-time barista, making our own pastas, Neapolitan pizzas, entrees, appetizers, like antipasti, charcuterie. I mean, it was unbelievable the scope of what we were trying to do and the space that we were trying to do there. And I learned a lot from opening that restaurant because it was a really challenging opening and we didn't execute well out the gate. And then we were able to, dig in and fix it, make it better, and turn it into a good business. But again, it was very challenging. And then after that experience, I had really bootstrapped the whole business, but I was broke again. And I was like, how can it be possible? I have these successful businesses, but I'm broke. So I said, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I went out, I got an SBA loan. I got inspired by the cuisine of the Basque Country in Spain and France. My brother worked at 3 Michelin Star Arzac there. He came home and we opened Cooks and Soldiers in 2014 with a real bank loan and a real contractor. And that was our first really prime time restaurant, like one where we got critical recognition for what we had done. We were named Eater Restaurant of the Year. Atlanta Magazine put us in their top 10 of the 50 best restaurants in Atlanta the opening year. We got the first James Beard nomination, and it was just a tremendous success and felt really good. And then after that, I did a couple restaurants in Krog Street Market, which were, again, those learning experiences where you open the restaurant and you realize I probably just lost all the money that I'd put into building this restaurant,
Wow.
And I think that those experiences, and we ran those restaurants for 5 years before closing them. We sold Recess because Recess actually was a successful business and is still successful to this day. But we realized a lot about ourselves, and I realized a lot about the concepts we were good at. And the thing that we're good at and that I'm good at is creating these great dining experience for guests that are at a upscale level and at a special occasion price point. And so trying to do something in the casual price point or fast casual or quick service, in order to excel, you have to excel on the thing that the customer wants from you the most. And what they want from you the most in those segments is they want consistency and speed more than anything else. And so what we were not good at in the upscale part of the business is the speed, but we're great at the hospitality. We're great at making you feel great about the dining experience you're getting. But it's that speed and trying to make a business model off of the price point and the efficiency and the cost control, everything that it takes to run a business at a lower price point is tremendously challenging. And it's a different skill set altogether. And so then in 2019, I was ready to duplicate Iberian Pig for the first time. And so we opened in Buckhead in 2019. And that was the first time we had duplicated a restaurant. And it was the 10th anniversary. of opening Iberian Pig. And we did it in a brand new space and with a new build out and a really amazing and talented interior designer. And that restaurant was a total smash hit. We opened in May 2019 and things were going great. And then COVID hit. So we didn't even get a year in with that restaurant before the pandemic hit. And the pandemic was a transformational time for many restaurants, and ours is no different. But I had been through so much already building the businesses where we had no customers in our dining rooms. So I knew what it was like to have an empty dining room. So I knew that I could survive and I could figure out a way to survive in a new environment. And I knew that the success we had built and the stability and the balance sheet and everything that we had put together leading into the pandemic, we were rock solid and we could definitely weather a storm. And so I knew from day one that we were going to figure out a way to get through it. And that did not involve closing our restaurants and laying off our employees and doing all the things that, most people in my position did. And the reason is because, we had built a solid, strong family business and we had no investors. We had nobody to tell us that you have to close, you have to cut your losses. We have to figure out what's going to happen after this. No, it's us and it's our employees. And we're going to be the ones that have to tell people that they don't have a job anymore. And so I wasn't about to do that. And what happened next was tremendous. We were able to pivot all the businesses within a period of hours, not days, months, and years, into takeout only and galvanize our team around a new way of doing business and constantly coming up with new and innovative ideas. And one of those ideas was to take a restaurant that was not doing well during the pandemic because there was no neighborhood around it of people that are, looking to pick up takeout, which is Cooks and Soldiers, and figure out ways to bring in more revenue sources to support the salaries of the team that worked there. And that one of those ideas was to do high-end sushi, to do omakase in a box. A friend of mine in New York is a sushi chef, and everything in New York was shut down. And so I was like, why not come down here and we can test out this pop-up idea and try it in a takeout format. We had already planned to do the pop-up in April of 2020 as a sit-down pop-up to test the market in Atlanta to see if it was something that people would go for here. And we opened the pop-up in May 2020, and it was just a tremendous amount of demand. So we saw initially that people wanted this special dining experience and that there was something there. So we ran that pop-up for over a year before shutting it down and signing a lease to make it its own standalone restaurant. And so that is what became Mujō. So Mujō was really a product of the pandemic. And then we opened Mujō in beginning of 2022, February of 2022. And, back then, if you remember, the Omicron variant had just come out and people were freaking out again and everybody's wearing masks and everybody's getting sick in the restaurants again. And so we were totally terrified that this was going to be a total flop. We were opening the most expensive restaurant in Atlanta in the middle of this pandemic still. And I thought we were totally toast. And I was working opening week of friends and family, and we released the reservations to the public for the opening 2 months. And the press releases go out and we're working and we're looking at the reservation book and it just starts flooding in. Within hours, we had sold out 2 months worth of reservations. It's still one of the most incredible experiences I've had in my career as an entrepreneur in that moment. And so there was clearly a tremendous demand for that. And then, of course, a year in, the Michelin guy decides to come to Atlanta. And so that was also extremely fortuitous that was happening because, a restaurant of this caliber is certainly eligible for Michelin rating. But again, it's lucky, but is it lucky if you don't have, you're not in a position to take advantage of that luck, right?
Mm.
So I think that if we didn't have Mujō or a Michelin Star caliber restaurant, it wouldn't matter if the Michelin Guide came to Atlanta or not. All of our other restaurants are more casual, and so that's a it's fortuitous, but you also have to be in a position to take advantage of that opportunity.
I mean, that's incredible. Like the fact that COVID, for some reason, it sparked so much creativity in so many people. It's really unique. It wasn't great at all, but it actually brought about so much good. Sounds weird to say it that way, but there's good in that bad. But it's really cool to see how Mujō is like a product of the pandemic. Like that struggle then turned into an opportunity, then turned into a really profitable business that turned into a Michelin Star restaurant, which is so impressive and so incredible. Tell our audience a little bit about the Michelin Star. Like what is that? How did it come about? And what does it mean to be a Michelin Star restaurant?
So the Michelin Guide originated in France with the Michelin Tire Company. And so over 100-year-old guide that they initially started to try to sell tires because they wanted people to drive around and know where to stop on their drive. And so the Michelin rating of it's either a Michelin recognized restaurant, meaning that it's in the guide, which is a very good restaurant. And then there are 3 Michelin star ratings, so 1, 2, and 3 stars. And so just getting a Michelin star is extremely prestigious. There's only 5 restaurants in Atlanta that have a Michelin star. There are no 2 Michelin star restaurants in Atlanta. There are very few 2 Michelin and 3 Michelin star restaurants globally.
Wow.
And it's an exclusive club, and it's challenging to be a part of. But ultimately, the product and the experience has to speak for itself. And the Michelin Guide will have anonymous inspectors come into your restaurant. And so in Atlanta, there were 5 inspectors going to all of the restaurants, and then you basically needed a unanimous decision for a Michelin star from all 5 inspectors. They'd come on multiple visits. And so it is something that it's very challenging to achieve. But ultimately, when you're in a Michelin star restaurant, you know it, you feel it, it's one of those things.
What is the defining characteristic that you feel like makes you a Michelin star restaurant?
Well, I like to say, if you read about what defines a Michelin star rated restaurant, they say it's the chef and the quality and the originality and the consistency of the food. Okay. But if you've been to enough Michelin star restaurants, 1, 2, and 3 Michelin star restaurants, you know what differentiates them from all of the other restaurants out there. And it's a tremendous attention to detail is what it is, and attention to quality in every single aspect of the dining experience. And so while it may not say that the hospitality or the environment or the china, glass, silverware, all the tactile things in the restaurant that you can feel and touch and see, the lighting contribute to that experience, right? And so if you have a tremendous attention to detail in the food, you also typically have a tremendous attention to detail in the hospitality and the environment and all the other things that are part of the experience. And so while Michelin will never come out and say that it's all of those other things, it's all of those other things. There's, 10,000 decisions that are made that go into opening a restaurant. And there are hundreds, if not thousands of decisions that get made on a daily basis that produce the product that you experience in that restaurant. And the attention to detail that is taken in those decisions is what makes a Michelin star restaurant. And so I can't tell you that like it's this one thing, because it's not this one thing. It's hundreds, if not thousands of things. And so it's that attention to detail into every aspect of the dining experience. And it's really the vision of the chef and the restaurateur and the SOM and the hospitality professionals and the line cooks and everybody coming together to execute on that vision. And when it happens well, it's magical. But it's not easy. It's challenging. So it may be magical for the guests, but it's not always magical on the other side.
Do you remember the moment that you found out that you got a Michelin star?
Oh yeah, because we were in the there was a gala that they produce in Atlanta, and so we were invited. And I remember the moment that I knew it was happening because they were announcing the restaurants that were recognized. And so Mujō is an M restaurant, and so they announced another M restaurant, and then they didn't say Mujō, and then they announced an S restaurant. And at that point, I knew that we weren't there to not be recognized at all. And so if we weren't getting recognized as a Michelin rated restaurant, we were getting a Michelin star. And so that's when I looked over to my chef and I was like, we're getting a fucking Michelin star.
That's incredible. Were you, did you know that they were in your building, or did you know, I don't even know how to ask the question. Like, did you know that you were being reviewed as like a Michelin star restaurant?
We did not know until they reached out to us.
For the gala?
For the gala. So they reached out to us to invite us to the gala. And we knew some of our friends and peers in the industry had already been invited. So we were really feeling extra nervous because we hadn't gotten our invite yet. So we were feeling pretty miffed that we were not going to get included. And we were all very nervous about it. And then we did get included and we got our invite. And then they reached out to us to do an interview with myself and Jordan, my chef partner. And at that point, I knew we were probably something good was happening if they wanted to interview us. But you can't get excited until it's actually happening.
Right, and you can't hype yourself up.
So yeah, we had a really fun night that night.
That's awesome. Well, we've talked a little bit about this, but tell me a little bit more about how you and your businesses create remarkable experiences for the people coming in. And we talked a little bit about like how, the Michelin star, like you have the remarkable experience embedded, but tell us about like the steps you take to create those experiences.
So yeah, I think the way we think about dining experiences at a restaurant is you have to create the culture that supports these dining experience. So, and then you have to create freedom within that framework for exceptional people to go above and beyond and create those experiences for your guests. So you have to give them the culture and the framework and the vision, and then allow them the creative freedom to express themselves within that framework. And so that's what we try to do at every business and every level of our business. And so a good example, the way that we do that is, so the mission statement and the purpose and the vision all tie in, but the mission statement is passionately pursuing the perfect dining experience one guest at a time. And then we have all of the values, the cultural values that kind of support that. And then we have the systems and processes and procedures in place in the business that also support that mission and those values that reinforce that through all of our processes of hiring, enculturating, training, rewarding, recognizing employees, measuring whether or not we're doing a good job. And so we have that framework, and then we want to give people the opportunity within that framework to do a great job. And so a lot of businesses, I think, too often work on filling the potholes in the road. And while that's an important part of doing business, is making sure that your customers have like a clean, safe road to drive along. But, when you're driving the car, you don't say, oh, it's so amazing there are no potholes on this road. You don't say that. There's nothing amazing about that. You're just fixing problems so that they're not experienced by the guests. And while that is extremely important to do, and it's something that we must do, those are the table stakes of the business. The things that you have to do in order to be even playing in the game. Like I say to our staff, like every single restaurant in Atlanta or Nashville tonight is going to open their doors at 5:00 and serve customers. And there's going to be food, and they're going to ring it up, and they're going to take payment, and they're going to close their doors at whatever time they close their doors. And so none of these activities innately that we're doing are creating anything long-term of value for our business. And so, yes, we have to fill the potholes. Yes, we have to make sure that the road is clean and safe. But really, it's that ability of our team to have that freedom and that creativity to say, how can I make this person's night amazing? Like, how can I create the best possible dining experience? What can I do for this individual to recognize them as an individual, to take care of them on a more personalized basis, to personalize that hospitality in some way? So those are the things that we're trying to constantly imbue into the organization in every possible location. And so, the big challenge that we've had over the last year is how do we do that in a new place? So we opened Nashville, and we were fortunate enough, the general manager, Kara, as well as dining room manager Latoya and Tony, our executive chef, and Dre, sous chef, all from Atlanta, decided to move there. And then we built a team around them, and then ran essentially this playbook of how do we open a restaurant in a new city, and it's been tremendously successful, largely due to the team being able to duplicate that those values and that culture in a new place. And so that's been really cool to see. But that's a big part of what we do.
And that's awesome. And I love the fact that you brought your team with you to Nashville. That's so cool. And it shows you, y'all's commitment to your people, and it's incredible. Tell me a little bit about like the mentorship that you do and how that has kind of like impacted your career.
Certainly. So I think that there's an important element of trying to help people out on their journey as well, help others on their journey, that we all have to do. And so we do that internally in a number of different ways. I do a leadership training class. I just finished one that every new manager has gone through. It's a multi-day, all-day leadership training class where I discuss a lot of the things that we talked about today, but a lot of my philosophy on business and my journey. And also, we have a dialogue and debate about leadership concepts and what it takes to be a great leader. And I try to develop the human being and the person outside of the context of just the business. Like, what does it take to be a successful human being? And these are some of the things that I've learned, and we have a dialogue and debate about that over multiple days in a classroom setting. So those are some of the ways that we do it internally. I also have a tremendous amount of respect for other entrepreneurs and people that are trying to make it themselves. And so I'll always dedicate my time and energy to those people trying to do it. And so one of the ways that I do that is through capital and investing in other businesses. And so when I find other businesses that are exciting and entrepreneurs that are doing really cool stuff, I want to help them on their journey and do everything I can to make them successful. And so advising, investing, mentoring, doing all those things with early stage companies is something that I'm very passionate about and something that I enjoy doing and will continue to do. And it's always fun to also just be around my people. And I've been fortunate enough to have been mentored as well by some great people in the industry over my lifetime. So there's always the, desire and opportunity to give back.
What is your biggest piece of advice for someone getting started, and how do you overcome those early hurdles?
So my biggest piece of advice is to focus on the next most important move that you're going to make. So every successful story can be broken down into the smallest possible moment-to-moment decision. And so all that really matters is right now, what are you going to do right now about this thing? And then making that decision. And all of our lives are just a series of those decisions and actions that are built into one thing or another. And so I think my biggest piece of advice is make sure that you're pushing through difficult scenarios with positive momentum, and then recognizing the decisions in life that are one-way doors. And so, some of those decisions can be your choice of where you're going to go to college, your choice of spouse, your choice of that first business and how you're going to fund it and get that initial seed investment. And so all of those little decisions that you make, there are some really big ones along the way. And so recognizing when those really big ones are upon you and taking the time and effort to really think through what that decision looks like and what are the potential outcomes of that decision. But again, you cannot be paralyzed by the big decisions in life. You have to pick a door and go through it and then meet the obstacle on the other side and continue to overcome obstacle after obstacle. And some of the, over the years, I mean, some very difficult things have happened to us over the years, and very difficult things happen to everybody in life. And it's your ability to overcome those challenges one after another after another. That is the game. So, do you really expect that you're not going to have any problems in life? Like, really, do you really expect that? And a lot of people go through life expecting there to be no problems, but that is exactly the opposite of what happens. And so people are extremely dispirited when they encounter all these big problems, but it's inevitable that they're coming. And so your ability to overcome obstacle after obstacle is what ultimately leads to success. There's no other path.
It's how fast you can get back up and keep going.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's incredible. I really do believe it. So as we're wrapping up, one of our favorite questions to ask everyone is, we have two questions. One, what does the word remarkable mean to you? And I think especially here, like as a Michelin Star restaurateur, like remarkable is exactly what you do. So what does that word mean for you?
I mean, I think it's just creating something of note. Like I said, it's not filling potholes. It's creating experiences for people that are memorable. And that's kind of what we're in business to do.
And the other question is, like, our podcast is called Make You Remarkable. And so our question for everyone is, what does the word make you remarkable mean for you?
I mean, I think the play on it is like make your mark, is that, is what you're going for there. And so, we're all trying to do our little thing in the universe here and, bring something positive to someone else's life. And that's really what it means to me, is like we're trying to bring a little bit of positivity to people on a daily basis through something that's pretty ephemeral, which is food and beverage and hospitality. It's here today, it's gone tomorrow, and then we do it over again. And so, but there's beauty in that. So that's what it means.
Incredible. Before we go, we do a quick lightning round. Really quick questions, really quick answers. They're just fun. First couple are a little bit more hard, and the last ones are more fun. Share a personal or professional best.
Personal or professional best? I mean, personally, it's my wife and 4 kids. It's the births of each one of those children is the highlight of my life, and the day I got married to my wife is the reason that all happened. So that's number one. Not even close second.
What is the most impactful piece of advice you've ever been given?
I've had a tremendous amount of advice given to me by my dad growing up, and it's not necessarily advice that he's given me, but it's what he's shown me in his perseverance, and my mom as well. Just seeing them go through challenge after challenge and figuring out how to get to the other side of it. That is the advice that I will take with me to my grave, and hopefully my kids will learn too.
Other than striving to pursue the perfect dining experience one guest at a time, what is your mantra?
I don't have a mantra. I think that I am just trying to every day do things a little bit better than we did the day before, and do the hard work. A mantra to me is talk, and I want to be about action.
I like that. Actually, that's really cool. What is your favorite family recipe?
Oh, man. At the end of the day, like, it's the sugo, right? Sauce. So my dad's tomato basil sauce is like the backbone of that restaurant and our first restaurant. And, we're Italian, so it's our heritage too. So it's gotta be the sugo.
What is your favorite dish that you've ever prepared?
Oh, man. As far as a dish that I prepared, I think one of the earliest dishes that I learned how to make, which was is like a pan sauce, like chicken franchise, as a line cook in an Italian restaurant, and like getting the pan sauce just right, and like the chicken cooked just perfectly. It's like a very simple dish, but it required some technique as a very young line cook. And so that, I think, was probably my favorite, is like nailing that dish preparation.
What are two things that shouldn't taste good together but do?
Things that shouldn't taste. I mean, you see it everywhere now, but like fried chicken and caviar is one that
Really?
Yeah, is like you see it everywhere. And now it's ubiquitous, and it totally makes sense why it's delicious. But champagne, fried chicken, and caviar is an incredible combination. So, but yeah, it's not something that you would typically think to put together.
No, that's awesome. And what is the best resource for someone looking to get into cooking?
Well, I think, you have to think about, is it cooking professionally? Is it cooking at home? Are you trying to be a restaurateur? Are you trying to be a chef? Are you trying to be a good home cook? So there are a lot of ways that you can take that. But if you're trying to get involved in our industry and you are a passionate home cook, usually I like to tell people that if your passion is cooking at home, then opening a restaurant is the easiest way you're going to kill your passion. And there's a quote, and I attribute it to Ben Chestnut, the founder of MailChimp, but I'm sure he found it from someone else. But he gave a talk, and he said, I was in the audience, and he said, "Don't do what you love what you do." So when you do what you love, that's your passion. You're going to kill your passion by doing what you love. But love what you do. Like, learn to love what you do by choosing something that challenges you, that you can get better at, that you can hone your craft over many, many, many years to become one of the best at that thing. I'm very passionate about music, and I'm an amateur musician. If I decided to do that for my career, I would hate it. But finding something like the hospitality industry, it challenges me. Restaurants challenge me in every possible way, in every faculty, left brain, right brain. It's creative, it's analytical, it's business, it's people. There's so many aspects of it that challenge me every day and allow me to try to get better at it. So.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Go ahead and give like a shameless plug. Plug your website, the social medias you want people to follow, ways they can get in touch with you or your company.
Yeah, certainly. So our company is Castellucci Hospitality Group. Our website is chgrestaurants.com. Our Instagram handle is CHG Restaurants. You can find all of the restaurant brands via Google or Instagram: Iberian Pig, Cooks and Soldiers, 00, Sugo, Mujō. So those are all available on the socials. On a personal level, if you want to get in contact with me, best way to do it is via email. And my email is Federico, Federico, at chgrestaurants, plural spelled out, .com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was so awesome to meet you. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise.